Hello, my name is Olurotimi Osha. I was discussing the two great Hollywood movies that provide, um, leitmotifs for the fraudulent subversion conduct of CIA senior executive um, David J. Rush, who has, of course, been arraigned and he's still detained in in Alexandria, Virginia, for theft of government property under uh, 18 USC Section 641. And also, I suppose he's been charged also, well, he'll be charged with falsification of government records, although that's not included in the affidavit against him. I read the briefs, and it's kind of funny that even though the special agent currently repeatedly mentions his falsification of government records, which should be that should fall under a charge of 18 USC section 1001, but he specifically expressly only uh, codified 18 USC section 641, which is theft of government property, or defrauding or embezzling funds from the United States government. Of course, he was found with 303 uh, gold bars worth over $40 million and $2 million in cash, and of course 35 luxury wristwatches, which mostly were Rolexes. Of course, Rolexes cost between $10,000 and $60,000 a piece. Um, so the reason I discussed those movies was each one had a specific element of, like, the activities of David J. Rush. Recruit reflected the infiltration and fabricated identity, the falsified identity to infiltrate, right? Infiltrate and exfiltrate, right? And remove something vital, something of value. In the case of David Rush, what we know, visible, what we know right now from details is just that he defrauded the United States government. What he removed wasn't state secrets, but he removed money, right? He removed $40 million worth of gold and $2 million in cash, right? Uh, so that's the infiltration aspect, right? The fabricated identity. Of course, he fabricated his credentials, his college degrees. He falsified his transcript saying he graduated from Clemson. He did not. And that falsified transcript from Clemson University, by the way, was the first thing that helped him obtain his promotion to lieutenant and ensign in the U.S. Navy Reserve, right? Because he joined in 1997. He didn't have a college degree, and he worked as an information systems technician. But later on, he was able to, I think, when he produced this false transcript, right, this fabricated transcript, saying he graduated with a degree in mathematics from Clemson University, then he was promoted to lieutenant in the Navy Reserves. He later, of course, provided additional fabrications. I've done videos explaining that. I just wanted to focus on the leitmotifs, right, that create a composite sketch of David J. Rush, right? His fraudulent activities in the CIA. When I say leitmotif, by the way, that means a recurring theme in a novel or in a play, right? So that's a leitmotif, right? So, as I said, in the case of the recruits, the falsified identity, right? When Layla, but by the way, so Burke tells us that Layla's identity, I mean, when he's telling Clayton, that's in the movie The Recruit, that she has a fabricated identity and the CIA knows, but they're letting her get in because they know she's a mole, because she's going to lead them to their handlers. They're going to smoke, it's a way to smoke out her actual controllers, her foreign handlers, right? So But what we're not told at the end, because it's not based off of a movie, by the way, it's an original screenplay, as I said, written by Roger Town, who's late, Kurt Wimmer, and uh, Mitch Glazer. So it doesn't tell us in the end if the CIA really lets in Kayla Moore with a fabricated identity. But I guess from the way we read it, the CIA is not going to bring in someone with a fabricated identity. Uh, Burke was just deceiving, created the false story, the false narrative to deceive and eventually frame Clayton, right? So that was why he created that false narrative. But just because it's there, the false narrative, the ability to fabricate uh, an identity, and then the use of um, the maze of spoofs, bureaucratic checks, just taking us round and round in circles, and have the gaslighting going on in the government that ends up confusing everyone. But in any event, with regard to the second movie, Our Man in Havana, 1959, written by Graham Greene, he also wrote the screenplay. I'm reading the book; I haven't finished it. But interestingly, the leitmotif there that parallels that of David, that explains David J. That we can use as a lens for David J. Rush is the fabrication, the fraud of an agent who's already inside, and they're creating these false spy programs, false um, spy campaigns in order to defraud uh, the government, right? In the case of Wormold in the movie Our Man in Havana, he created this fake ring of spies so he can keep defrauding the British intelligence. So they could keep sending him money. He created even this fake giant installation, military installation that his agents were supposed to have given him, so they could keep sending him more money. And then they even sent him. It's ironic that they sent him two agents to aid him. Of course, in reality, uh, David Rush created a fake spy program, right, through a special access program, right, and he read in two people. By the way, I've gone through that process because I hold a top secret TSSCI from you know the U.S. government as well, and so I've gone through that whole vetting system, and through the special access program, I understand what it is. So it is a very rigorous thing to get into. It's like ultra top secret, right? So he creates that. David J. Rush creates this ultra. By the way, none of what I'm saying is classified. It's in the public domain. I have to give that disclaimer. So he creates this fake spy program in order uh, to siphon funds, right, from the U.S. government, and of course, this is all still under investigation. So those are the two elements from those two films that you can see in David J. Rush's actions. I want to keep this short. Something else that I think will come out and I want to discuss is that, well, of course, the government is considering right now. So far, the government says there's no evidence that he was being controlled by a foreign government, right? But I want to remind us of the goals and strategies of the USSR, the KGB during the Cold War. When we think about espionage against the US, we normally think about it in terms of somebody on the inside stealing military secrets, right? Top secret uh, information regarding our military, and then selling it off to the KGB or some other foreign government, right? Foreign military intelligence. However, one of the main core strategies of the USSR to try and defeat the US, right, it was also the use of what's called covert influence campaigns, right, to create disinformation, use propaganda to manipulate public opinion, right? Manipulate public opinion and create general mistrust of the U.S. government, for Americans to view their government as immoral, right? Corrupt, bankrupt, working against them, right? So that's something that we have to consider. I'm going to do another video probably just explaining that. So David, so how, how can, what better exemplifies uh, an event that would cause public disaffection against the U.S. government, you know, by showing how corrupt um, senior government officials are, like the instance of David J. Rush, right? David J. Rush, a person who gets in on fabricated documents into our premier spy agency, the CIA. They haven't done, if they're talking about espionage, right? Hollywood hasn't released more videos, right? More movies about the spy agency than the CIA. CIA is the top uh, agency that's that's recurrent. That's recurrent in Hollywood when they're talking about espionage. The CIA, CIA, CIA. The whole world knows the CIA. It's considered the premier spy agency, that the CIA has all the information. They know everything, right? They know everything. They're the ones who breach and infiltrate. They can't be breached, right? Here we are. This is a guy supposed to be a single guy, like Frank Abagnale of Catch Me If You Can, who infiltrates this major, premier spy agency alone, right? Clearly, this guy is no Robert Frank Abagnale. But by the way, Frank Abagnale's story is wholly fabricated. Journalists have found out that he fabricated a lot of his stories, right? But this guy, David Rush, is the real Houdini, right? He's the Houdini of infiltration, right? And con man. He infiltrates the CIA. Not only does that, but he's there for 17 years and then becomes a member of the senior executive service, right? All the way to the top. In fact, he was a liaison to the CIA's liaison to the Department of Defense. He was on President Trump's Intelligence Advisory Board, which the incumbent uh, Deputy Secretary of Defense, the billionaire Steven Feinberg, was chairman of. So um, clearly, this guy was not working alone. So of course, the government is looking at that. So part of a covert influence campaign is, yes, they want to engender disaffection amongst the American public, right? The public against their government. They want them to view their government as immoral, as fraudulent, corrupt, right? Uh, but the sponsors are not observable. They're not visible. They're hidden. The sponsors of this covert influence campaign, they eliminate observable paper trail, right? That leads to them. So they're going to dig up more information. I think it's not far fetched to consider that David J. Rush was a mole being controlled by foreign governments, or the people who let him in, who facilitated, uh, his exploits, his atrocities in the CIA, uh, are, are moles inside the U.S. government, right? The people, there's maybe a network or one person who facilitated him infiltrating the CIA and rising. That person or group of people, they're moles working for a foreign government, right? And so, because that's one of the objectives of foreign malign actors, right? Particularly the KGB back then. They wanted to create moles, not just to steal military secrets from the Pentagon or the military. They also wanted to create, and that's because that's what they're really trying to do when they're trying to infiltrate the CIA. Because that was something that they did extensively in the 60s and the 70s, right? To create disaffection, create people who are going to sabotage, undermine, subvert our national institutions, right? They're going to undermine our national institutions. They're going to cause the American public to lose affection, to lose public trust in their government, right? And that's, again, as I said, the atrocities of David Rush, would exemplify that loss of confidence, right? In loss of confidence in the U.S. government, because here's a senior government official who should not have been there. He gets in with falsified records, creates false programs. He basically just instantiates what the KG what KGB back then. I think now they're called, and other foreign military intelligence outfits that are against the U.S. That's what they're looking for, right? That's what they've been they want to try and point out, that they have these corrupt bureaucrats who are just defrauding the United States, the people of the United States, and uh, you know, the government doesn't really work for them. In any event, I'll do another video explaining covert influence campaigns. My name is Olurotimi Osha, and I'll keep you posted. Thank you.